Before it was a film, it was a script. Welcome to A Film By Presents A Script By, a limited series hosted by me, Brad Koszo. In this series, we'll explore some of Hollywood's most celebrated screenplays, the scripts that define genres, inspire generations, and change the way stories are told. Each episode, we're going to break down what makes these screenplays so powerful, how the acts flow together, how structure and character drive story and theme, and how every page earns its place. We'll also take a closer look at the writers behind the words, their process, their influences, and the journeys that led them to create these iconic works. This is a script by Let's Turn the Page. Welcome to the premiere episode of A Script By. I am Brad Koszo, and I am so excited to finally have this out there for anyone that would want to hear it. Just want to thank anybody that's listening right now, and we'll get right to it. For our first episode, we're going to dive straight into what many consider one of the greatest screenplays ever written. I'm talking about Robert Towne's masterwork, the screenplay for 1974's Chinatown. It's a script that defined an era of filmmaking, a story of corruption, deceit, the illusion of control wrapped in the sun-bleached glamour of old Los Angeles. Today, we'll take a closer look at why these screenplays are still studied, still quoted, and still regarded as a blueprint for how to tell a story that feels both timeless and tragic. From the first 10 pages to its devastating final line, we'll break down how Chinatown earned its place as one of the most celebrated scripts in Hollywood history. So to start off, before we get going, I am very pleased to welcome to the first episode of A Script By my guest, Chuck Bryan, the host of the Cinematic Flashback. That's right, folks. By day, Chuck's a senior software developer, but by night, he's all about 70s cinema. On his podcast, he and his co-host revisit the films that defined the decade, diving into the stories, the cultural impact, and why they still resonate. Chuck, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Brad, thank you so much for inviting me on. I am really super psyched to be here tonight. I have to say, I've been looking forward to this conversation now ever since Jeff reached out to me and pitched the idea. I thought it was great. I love your limited series, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to do on Chinatown and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this one I'd have to say is uh, not so much the easiest, but the most you can kind of talk about why it's considered so great. And like when Jeff told me about, he's got the script and then about your podcast and things like that, I'm like, well, yeah, that's just like my doppelganger. It's perfect.
You could almost say that 70s movies is my métier.
Oh, it's. I think if you, even though it's kind of said the '70s movies, it's about 1967 to like mid '80. I mean that whole group of films that 14, 13 years, that is just the classics that will always be considered classics.
Oh yeah. Oh
Best
yeah.
years of cinema.
Well, on the Cinematic Flashback, we are solely keeping in between 1970 and 1979, and it's hurting a little bit because you're right. There's a couple of them that are right on the edge, but
Yeah,
I grew up in the 80s, so I grew up
me
with
too.
the in the 70s when I was a child. The movies I saw were the Superman, the Star Trek, the Star Wars.
Exactly.
You know, I did not know about films like MASH, Kelly's Heroes, Clute, all of these films that are just real early, and they are just magnificent films. They're so much fun. There's some clever ones. There's some ones that aren't so great as well.
Right.
But, overall, Matt, my co-host Matt Sargent, and I, we decided that we would restrict ourselves to this one decade period and just explore what we can, and then just ask each other honestly, does it still groove or has it actually skipped a beat? And that's the way in which we render our final judgment of thumbs up or thumbs down on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was watching one of those, like the CNN, the movies that they did a couple years ago, and one of the uh, film school professors just kind of said it. He goes, "You can basically teach the '70s films for just like years, just
Oh yeah.
teach for years." He goes, "Then that's all you kind of really need."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now with Chinatown, do you remember when you first saw it, what you thought of the film, and then later on what you kind of thought of the script?
So I can say, I can definitely tell you all of those because I first saw Chinatown for the first time last year in our season one when we reviewed the film.
Okay.
Before that, I mean, Chinatown was always one of those films that a friend of mine said you should watch. And he told me he didn't tell me much of the plot, but he told me it was about water, waterworks, water department.
Right.
And in my mind, I kept thinking, okay, it's Jack Nicholson, but I don't know, the water thing just never really sat with me. We reviewed it last year, and I'm telling you, without necessarily spoiling anything for anyone here right at this point, I will say that the ending of the movie, my jaw was literally in my lap. I couldn't believe it how this film ended. And it was a satisfying film, even though it was tragic at the end.
Yeah.
The whole film was satisfying. This past Christmas, I had the chance to be with my mom, and I showed her this film. She had never seen it. She'd always wanted to see it as well, and she had the exact same reaction. And
Yeah.
it's almost like I think she actually maybe had bought the film before she left and had it shipped from Amazon to her home.
Yeah.
But and when we were doing our study for this, or reviewing for the preparing for the podcast, I came across that how much that this film is taught. The screenplay is taught,
Mhm.
and I did not know the name Robert Towne. It didn't mean anything to me, but now I see his fingerprints all over the place, and got the opportunity recently to read the screenplay in preparation for this for tonight, and it really brings out a lot in the film. I really liked
Yeah.
it. The again, it reads well, and there's a lot of details that I think Robert Towne put into the film or into the
Yeah.
screenplay that when you read the screenplay and then you watch the film, you just start to notice all these small little characteristics or little movements. But yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I remember I didn't see it until when I had this crazy notion that long time ago when I thought I was going to be a screenwriter. The thing to get was Sid Field's screenplay book, and that film or Chinatown and
Mm-hmm.
Dog Day Afternoon are mentioned very frequently in the like the first couple chapters of the book. So the more research it is, like, okay, this is supposed to be this other classic, like The Godfather and stuff. And then I was starting to really get into these '70s movies, and yeah, like I said, after my I was shocked, but I was also just kind of like, did that did that happen? And almost kind of had to go back to
Mm-hmm.
make sure. It was like, did I miss it? It was like, no, you didn't miss it. It's just very cleverly put there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, so many things.
Well, let's get started with our breakdown. This is a script by Robert Towne. Fade in. So Robert Towne was basically kind of all over everywhere in the '70s. He's even his name wasn't really always on screen. He was always doing uncredited work in movies like Bonnie and Clyde, where he was a creative consultant, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, The Parallax View, basically, like you mentioned before, shaping the tone of the entire decade. But the moment that really got people talking was his rewrite on that Godfather scene between the Marlon Brando and Pacino. It was subtle, it was emotional, and it caught the attention of Godfather producer Robert Evans, who then invited Towne out to dinner, and they start talking about what are you going to do next, and he tells him, I got this idea I've been sitting on, 1930s detective story, but wait, no, it's not about gangsters or shootouts, it's about water. Who controls it? What happens when you steal the lifeblood of a city? Evans immediately wants a script. Towne tells him, no, it's mine. So instead of walking away, Evans does something rare. He backs him anyway. He tells Towne, you know what? Don't write what the studio wants. Write what only you can. And what Towne delivers is a story about murder, corruption, power, hiding in plain sight under California's sun. But he also knew the script needed a director, someone precise, someone could turn elegance into something essentially. And that's when he, of course, thought of Roman Polanski because they had already worked together on Rosemary's Baby. But at that time, Polanski had basically left Hollywood and disappeared after the brutal Manson murders of his wife Sharon Tate in 1969. And he didn't want to come back to Los Angeles. But I mean, he initially said no. He said, no, the city just carries too much weight. But Evans kept pushing, telling him this wasn't just a movie. It was a story about Los Angeles itself, that Robert Evans voice you can almost hear about the rot, the beneath, the beauty, the lie, the control. He read the script and then just something clicked. He recognized that underbelly, and that's where the script really comes into focus. It's basically the collision between Towne's perspective, which is truth still matters, and Polanski's perspective of truth doesn't save anyone. What do you think about that kind of like approach to it? Like two people that see it, one happy, but one like, no, that's not the real world.
Hmm. Well, I think you end up with Chinatown.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that really stuck out for me for Robert Towne was his origin story and
Yeah.
how he first started off with Roger Corman. Roger Corman gave most of our Hollywood heroes
Yeah.
their start. It's amazing. And the the first thing that I remember, I have this book here by Roger Corman. This is an autobiography called "How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood and Never Lost a Dime."
Exactly.
And he was talking about Robert Towne, and he said, "Give this man enough time, and he will write Chinatown or a shampoo. But I need him to write faster." He even told one of his writers who she was just coming in to work. He said, "In that room, the door is closed, and in there is Robert Towne. He's writing for me, and he's going to slip papers underneath the door to you, and then you take them as he gets them, and then at some point bring him lunch. But whatever you do, don't let him out of the room." So Corman leaves to go do his movie, and Robert looks out and says, "Is he gone yet?" And then takes a break. So give him enough time, and he will write Chinatown. And I think that what he was able to do with story about water wars and just murder and mystery and all the things was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I kind of did a little bit of a dive with his work preparing for this show, besides just Chinatown, and uh, watching The Last Detail and Bonnie and Clyde, and kind of seeing how it's straight in your face. It's
Mhm.
not he doesn't how does it say that he doesn't give you a metaphor, he shows you. I'm not going to give you a metaphor about it. I'm showing you the horror right there, and no apologies, and very very brutal, very kind of rough.
Yeah, he doesn't pull. He doesn't necessarily pull punches, but sometimes he kind of layers his, especially in Chinatown. And it's one of the things that we'll probably say. But I love how the movie starts off as one thing and leads you down this road, and you're finding out things at the same time as Geddes is finding it out, and
Yeah.
you're along with him. And I love that you start with this very narrow point of view, and by the end, it's like it's so wide, and you see everything, and you see the corruption, and it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. And what we're going to basically try to do is to, in some way, kind of simplify it because
Yeah.
I think the biggest kind of, you know, thing with people have sometimes with this film is that it's confusing. There's just so much to it. I'm like, yes, because it's confusing to Jake. You feel the confusion. He is confused just as much as the audience member at that time. So yes, it is confusing, and yes, it is something that needs to be revisited to kind of break down again, but it's not pretentious. It's not saying, "Oh, we're smarter than you and this is a smart movie and your movies aren't smart." It's saying, "Look what happens when you don't know what the hell is going on." Well, right now we're going to take one of our first breaks. When we come back, we're going to delve into the first 10 pages of Chinatown and break down Act 1. Welcome back. We are talking Act 1 in the first 10 pages. Here's what we know from the first 10 pages. We meet Jake Gittes, confident, private detective. He makes money off people's secrets. He's approached by a woman claiming to be Mrs. Mulray, the wife of a Los Angeles chief water engineer, Hollis Mulray. She suspects her husband is cheating on her. Now, in the script and on the film as well, Jake's line of when she mentions Hollis Mulray, water and power. When he says it, he's like, wait, water and power? He hears Hollis Mulray's name, and that's telling the reader, the audience, Jake knows this name. He knows it's an important big guy. This one's a big deal. Audience, remember this guy's name. You know, he's going to be important. Now, this moment, the fake Mrs. Mulray visit, this is the story's first inciting incident. I mean, it's the lie that sets everything in motion. You know, he takes the case without question. You know, he never realizing he's being used as, I mean, a pawn in a much larger game.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You know, one of the things about the script that's really great is the things that don't make it to the screen. And the movie starts off with Gittes working with a client who has his wife is cheating on him. Okay,
Right.
so like you said, he makes his money on this. You know, so after he reviews the pictures, you know, he's in the movie. You know, the next time you see him, you know, he's escorting him out, and they're talking about payments and whatnot. But in the script, there is a line where Curly is asking, you know, I could kill her, right? I could just murder her, and they don't kill a guy like that, or do they? And Gittes just gets real angry. He says, "I'll tell you, it's the unwritten law, you dumb son of a bitch. You got to be rich to kill somebody, anybody, and get away with it. You think that kind of dough? You think you got that kind of cash?" And the minute I read that, I mean, that's like within 10 pages, and I'm thinking, that is the film. That is one of the major themes of this film.
Yeah.
And he just said it right out there.
Yeah.
And part of me wants to say maybe it was a good idea that they didn't put that into the film.
I thought so too. There was when we get to the ending of the film, a much longer, I guess, struggle. But it felt too like Gittes is trying to, like, you know, knock us in the head. Hello, you guys are getting this. And I'm like, and it seems like it goes on just a little too long. So he begins his investigation. We see the glossy sunlit world of 1930s Los Angeles, contrasted with dry riverbeds, furious farmers accusing the city of stealing their water. So by page 10, Towne has already established the film's tone of deception, corruption, and illusion, though neither Gittes nor the reader yet realizes how deep the lies go. At that point, did the first 10 pages earn your trust? And if so, how does he do it without tipping his hand too early?
Well, one of the things for me is you have to find Jake relatable. I mean, even though he does what he does, he has to be likable at a very basic level for the audience to actually connect with him, to want to go along with him. And, this is where my misunderstanding of the film when I was told about it was, okay, this is an investigation of a man for water and power. Okay, I am not too interested in it, but because of, whether it was the script, whether it was Jack Nicholson being a very young Jack Nicholson, I was drawn into it, surprisingly.
Yeah. And the fact that you, like you said, that he's not just a creep, a money tabloid kind of chaser. He tells her, do you love your husband? Yes.
Yeah.
Then go home, let it go. I know you're rich. I know you'll pay me a fortune, but I have some dignity. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
soulless, heartless person. You should just let it go. You don't want to deal with that. She just want to see her tear the blinds down like Curly.
Yeah, and even with Curly, Curly is like, they're working out the payment for it, and
Hmm.
he says, "I'm not going to take your last dime,"
Yeah.
you know, and so immediately, I think um, we we connect with him,
Yeah.
and I think that we don't see him as like, well, this guy's just preying off the pain of others. We
Hmm.
actually, as 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 he says later in the barber chair, I'm doing people a service.
Yeah.
I'm not kicking them out of their homes,
No.
kind of. So
Yeah, he's just somebody says, "Hey, I want you to see if somebody's cheating on me." Okay,
yeah,
I'll do you. I'll do you that solid.
yeah.
So getting into Act One, like I said, we begins with the woman claiming to be Mrs. Mulray, the wife of Los Angeles chief engineer. She hires private detective Jake Gittes to investigate her husband's suspected infidelity. This moment that we said it's the inciting incident. The smug, the self assured. He takes it without question. It's going to be so much more than adultery case, but he trails Hollis Mulray anyway, and he notices that he just doesn't really appear to be a guy kind of cheating. He's just more like a man haunted by the city's water problems. He's inspecting dry riverbeds, empty reservoirs, and there's political hearings where like farmers accuse him specifically of like stealing their livelihood. Um, then Gittes does see him with a woman, and we're never shown any kind of intimacy. It's just the woman is there and she's younger. And it hits the newspapers. And of course, like you said, scandal erupts. I'm just an honest man. But then the fit hits the shan when the real Evelyn Mulray storms into his office, furious that her name has been dragged to the press. That's when Gittes realizes he's being used, confidence shattered, reputation on the line. Determined to clear his name, he's got to now dig deeper, uncover evidence that water is being secretly dumped at night while the city claims that there is a drought. So, right there, but yet everything changes when Hollis Mulray dies.
Hmm.
It found, and the thing is, the chief water engineer found dead, drowned in the very reservoir that he was inspecting. Uh, you know, right now at that point, so we see Hollis Mulray's body come up. That's the point of no return. That closes out the Act One. That means the lie that began as a routine case now becomes a murder investigation, and the stakes explode from personal embarrassment to life and death conspiracy. I'm not sure of the exact page number, but I think it's around maybe 33 or 35. So about that like half hour mark. So
Hmm.
that's a pretty good solid Act One, and then so he's gonna step into the Act Two. Now he's chasing the truth. I mean, for this one, but really, the truth's gonna chase him. I
Yeah.
mean, because Act One, it's all set up, it's sleight of hand. We're watching a detective story about infidelity, but what Towne is really doing, he's luring us into a trap, just like with Gittes, the same one he walks into. By time Hollis Mulray's body turns up, it's too late. The game's changed, and the real story, the one about the corruption and the control and the illusion, that's just the beginning. So Chuck, looking at Act One as as a whole, when do you think Gittes actually loses control of the story? And is there any point where he could have safely walked away?
He was never in control,
Hmm.
I would say. And I'm not sure if his character would have allowed him. I mean, I think he has this kind of a character who, the relationship that he has with the client. He's at this point he realizes that he has been set up.
Right.
Okay, he knows that someone who was posing as Evelyn Moray came in, hired him. He did a job, and then suddenly the real Evelyn Mulray shows up, and she's going to sue him. And then, not too much longer, her husband shows up dead. So
Yeah.
now he is actually um, in a position where he could be implicated in
Hmm.
conspiracy or conspiring with, or being paid off, or possibly extorting Evelyn.
Right.
And so I think at this point, he realizes that, I mean, the time that he could have walked away maybe was by not taking the original Evelyn Mulray's, the shimp
Yeah.
Evelyn
Yeah. Once
Mulray's.
once he did it, that was it.
The die was cast.
And yeah, there was no way going out of it. And he was, it seems so innocent. He did it with Curly, and he's done it all before. It seems so innocent. Good paycheck.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now he's not only did someone end up dying and being murdered, but a very high profile person, and he is now in this kind of web of lies that
mm,
that they just kind of threw him in. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I think I myself, and as a reader, would be like, yeah, you need to find this out. What the hell is going on?
yeah. Oh, if he, if at this end of Act One or whatever he gave up, of course we would all be frustrated by that.
Oh
But
yeah.
one of the other things that I really like about this script, and I think the first one actually kind of happens here, is that uh, Towne sprinkles clues all throughout. Okay,
Yeah.
and the first one I think is the gardener who tells Jake it's bad for glass.
Bad
And
for
Jake's
lies.
like, yeah, sure, bad for glass.
Mm-hmm.
A little misunderstanding of the
Right.
Japanese gardener who might be pronouncing a letter incorrectly that comes
Right.
back later.
Yes. And like I said, just those tiny little things. And I'm sure as a first time viewer, it is kind of frustrating to be seeing like him watching this guy like go to boring empty reservoirs and things like that. Um, but I will say one thing. Anybody that does live in California will kind of understand what it's like to deal with stuff in a drought in 2026, let alone 1930s, so but yeah, I agree with you. He At first I thought it was possibly when he found out he was just being used and kind of
Mm-hmm.
walked away. But now that you kind of said, it, yeah, I was like, no, he was sucked in from the beginning.
Yeah.
All right, we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to break down Act Two of Chinatown and see how the story dives even deeper into corruption and control. Welcome back. We're digging into Act Two, where Chinatown really starts closing on Jake Gittes. So after Hollis's Mulray's death, the case stops being about saving face and basically just turns into an obsession. He's not investigating anymore. He's chasing something bigger, something that who basically doesn't want to be found. And then he starts to dig into the city's water scandal. He realizes he's being followed, watched, outplayed. Every answer raises more questions. I mean, it's classic noir paranoia.
Mm.
The sense that the truth itself is just kind of hunting him. I mean, on page, Town writes it is clean procedural. One clue leading to the next, leading to the next. But I will say on screen, Polanski, that sense, that frustration that you feel, that I think that's him. He
Mm.
turns in that suffocation, the tight frames, the harsh lighting, the everything just kind of there's no certainty. But I mean, the midpoint though is Jake nose being slashed.
Oh.
It is the one true literal and symbolic warning. What happens to a nosy fella? Tell you what, loses his nose. Well, because little funny thing too is that Polanski actually plays that little part there. Um, but I mean, there, the arrogance that's stripped away, and now it's not professional; it's just physical. And then it's like I said, it's like an onion. It just keeps peeling and it like keeps stinking. Then the Ida Sessions phone call. I'm the woman that called.
Mm.
It's like another one. Then they go, Jake and Evelyn start getting close and hanging out and doing some investigating around. They start finding out that there's lying about they're irrigating the Northeast Valley. He goes and checks. They're not doing that, but they are saying it, the people at the, Water and Power. And these senior citizens that have these links to millionaires, oligarchs of 1930s, whatever, are using these senior citizens to put their names on the deeds of all this stolen land. But yet at the same time, the character of Evelyn starts to crack. We get her fear, we get her hesitation. I mean, her guilt. She kind of bleeds it on the surface, but Jake doesn't really understand it. I mean, you see any time her father Noah Cross is mentioned, it is just like someone's poking her with a needle.
Mhm.
But it also says on the page like alarmed, or she looks up hesitating, or just things very simple like Miss Mulray, you already have another cigarette going. As she starts, he mentions that the father, and she pulls out a cigarette when she already has one going. Just little things like that. Just little, like I said, those little sprinkles. Just being like, there's something really up with her dad. Not just, hey, I got daddy issues. She's got something worse than that. That there's really about the 130 mark of the movie, probably page 90-ish, kind of
Mhm.
where we're at. I mean,
Yeah.
it keeps getting more confusing, and even if you've seen the film as many times as I'm sure I have and you have,
I've seen it a
reading
lot
this
now.
reading the script, you're still confused. And your headache is also Jake's headache in a way. So Chuck, by act 2, is he trying to solve the case still, or is he just trying to just prove something about himself?
I'm going to say both. So, and by that I mean he's obviously investigating. He meets Evelyn at the Brown Derby,
Mm-hmm.
and that is where he receives a check as she is now officially engaging with him to be her investigator. And he asks what the C stands for in her initials, and she says cross. And then he immediately, the next scene, he is in the office of Yelburton, who was the former partner of
Yeah.
Hollis Mulray. And he's looking at all of the different pictures on the wall, and he notices a man whose name is Cross. And he's inquiring of the secretary, and she says, "Oh yes, that's Noah Cross. He at one point owned the water reservoirs of Los Angeles. He and his partner Hollis Mulray." So you realize these men in the past had great power over the city, and just a great responsibility is what Hollis Mulray felt. And he was like, this really should be part of the communities. This should belong
Right.
to the public. And in a way, he deprived Noah Cross of that control of not only what the future of Los Angeles at that time by
Right.
ceding all of that over to the public good. So Jake is investigating. This is all of him going about investigating. Um, the other thing that is really, and as he is investigating, Ida Sessions calls and basically leaves a cryptic message, check the obituaries. And
Yeah.
then he ends up at the Hall of Records, where he sees in the deeds of transactions, all of these people.
Yeah.
And some of them are on in, leads him to where the old folks home. And this is where he realizes that there's this shenanigans that are going on, and at the same time, he is still trying to make sure that it doesn't look like he's shaking down uh, Evelyn to Lou Escobar, the
Right.
detective who is also investigating this for the police.
What I love the way Towne does not only the finding out about Noah Cross and Mulray's history together, it's in an effort where, as the reader or the viewer, it's a charming scene because he's annoying the shit out of this woman and
Absolutely.
getting this information. So it's done in such a clever way of like, we're going to give you some important pieces of the puzzle here, but we
Mm,
really need you to pay attention. So we're going to let Jack Nicholson just kind of be a be kind of an annoying thing to get on that. And I love the way that he does that by saying, "Listen up,
yeah.
this is important." And the way and there's a couple times that Jake kind of finds things out almost by accident, and
Mm.
just he's a very good investigator. He's very good at it.
One of the things my co-host brought up to me, and I'm not sure if this is a thing or not, but after Jake gets cut, this is where you see the giant bandage on his
Mhm.
nose. You remember that, right?
Yes.
You can't forget it. Um, and it starts off huge. And as it gets closer to the end of the movie, as he is beginning to learn more and more and more, the bandage is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller until at the very end, when all is revealed, he's finished his investigations, all the truth is out. Now the cut and the bandage are gone.
Yeah. By the end, they're not even they get a little bit
A little,
smaller.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think there's like two or three of them maybe,
Hmm.
and they get a little bit smaller. And but yeah, by the time the end, it's like it's completely gone, and it's like I said, peeling off that other layer,
Yeah.
another layer, and
But all of that happens in the script because you and I are watching this and we're learning things, and we're still trying to figure out what's the deal with Noah Cross. And as you said, every time I always thought that the one scene to me that really showed Evelyn's vulnerability was, after they have slept together, and she gets a phone call and she's getting ready
mhm.
to leave. And uh, uh, Giddys says, "I had met your father." And at that point, I mean, at one point, she's just very comfortable around him. And
Yep,
then she goes into that very defensive posture where she puts her hands and she's covering herself, and she's just very tight. And I mean, it's just like the air has gone out of her. And Yeah, I thought that every time, you're right, every time she does, and you might not notice it the first time, but the second time you watch it, you notice all of that.
well, because then you know
Yes,
why she would be
that way.
discussing him in the nude.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes.
please, we're not gonna, do that. So then we come to Act Three, and that's when Act Three basically everything comes together and then falls apart. I mean, he thinks he's closing in on the truth, but he's really discovering is just how powerless he is against the system that he's going against. And of course, the point comes with Evelyn's secret, which we're going to say because if you're listening to the show, you've obviously seen the movie, and that is the reveal that Catherine, the girl in question, is both her Evelyn's daughter and her sister due to incest and rape. And the thing is, after that, everything else is just done.
Mm.
It's just like, all right, because you had motive to think that Noah Cross was involved, with he wanted, Hollis wanted the water to be for the people. Noah Cross didn't. Okay, there's your motive.
Hmm.
But this motive knocks you on a thing. You're kind of not even thinking about it, that the truth basically just, but that point right now, it's not about water rights. It's not about land deals. It's about abuse, control, and this rot that just keeps being passed down through like generations. It's from that point, he's just doing damage control,
Hmm.
just to kind of just somehow help her because he was so gut punched the same way we were. He believes that knowing the truth means he can fix things,
Mm.
but he's wrong because in Chinatown, power protects itself. And then uh, the final scene, which we're going to talk about in just a tiny, tiny bit, that breaks every Hollywood resolution. That basically the truth changes nothing.
Mm.
On page, Town gives us devastation, but on screen, Clancy's going to give us, you ain't going to forget this. This is going to be unforgettable. Um, the story ends not with justice, but surrender. And that line, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown, is just surrender.
Mm.
This is what happens. And like I said, and you're sitting here wondering, why the hell is this movie called Chinatown? It's about water in LA. And then there you go. And you get your answer. So let's talk about this controversial ending. The original template was Chinatown wanted Chinatown to end with Evelyn killing her father. He did. It was a small victory, built on corruption, but Polanski, he saw it differently. He lived through real
Yeah.
evil. That there's no escaping it. So he rewrote that ending, where Evelyn dies, Noah Cross walks free, gets the sister daughter, and Jake he walks away he just defeated. It wasn't just really just the ending of the film. It was Polanski's worldview too. It's just like he's almost saying it, Chinatown, forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown, forget it, Roman, it's LA.
Yeah.
But in his version, evil doesn't lose. It just goes home.
At this point, too, there's another great line. And to me, this line stabs me deeper than forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the line, as little as possible. And that harkens back to a story that he's telling Evelyn. And she says, you were working in Chinatown. What were you doing there? And he said, as little as possible. And the origin of that line actually came from a cop who worked in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Who said, look, you don't know the culture. You don't know which gang is which. You don't understand. And so sometimes the best things you can do is as little as possible so that you don't make situation worse. And we understand in the movie that something had happened in Chinatown. You feel it in the relationship with Lou Escobar. I mean, that whole relationship, every time the two of them are together, I mean, there's so much tension there. And it resolves again at the very end where there's Jake. Again, he's in Chinatown. He's tried to help another lady and who needed help.
Right.
And once again, Chinatown screwed him over.
Yeah. And it seems to be the one thing that Escobar and Gittes agree upon.
Yeah.
Every time that they do come in contact with each other, like he was under the notion that Escobar was still working in Chinatown, and he's like, I'm out of Chinatown. And Jake is very pleased for him. He's like, oh, good. You got out of that garbage where you didn't know what the hell was going on, And even when he is he's explaining to I can't remember, he's explaining to Noah Cross about Escobar, he's giving him good remarks. He knows he's because Escobar's close. He's pretty close. Once he starts kind of at the end laying, so he's like he knows, he's like, he will find this out.
Yeah.
Escobar will find this out. And that's why he keeps content. Sure, they bust each other's balls, but they have this connection. And I think they have this almost like police Hippocratic oath type of thing of like, this is the right thing to do.
Was this the right ending, or was Towne's a better ending? Which one would have, if we lived in the alternate universe and you could pick the director's cut or you could pick the original, which one would you?
I'm gonna go with Polanski because with his version, because it is not only realistic, we've seen Rich people, yeah, like if he wouldn't have cut that scene out, like you said from the beginning, he would have tipped his hand too early.
Hmm.
And but like you said, but from that line, he's like, yeah, you got to be rich to kill somebody. We've seen that through history. We know it. We've
Hmm.
lived it, so that there seems more, if we've seen it in our lifetime, in 1930s, it is a lot easier to let that thing just be pushed aside and
Yeah.
what, swept under the carpet. So I think that one, she never had a chance.
Hmm.
Poor woman, Evelyn never had a chance.
You remember I said there's all those little clues that get sprinkled in.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're leaving the what is it, the Vista Del Mar, the age the home the elderly home,
Yeah.
and Mulvihill and his goons are they shoot twice at this car that she's driving away in, kind of
Yeah.
foreshadowing what's about to happen. And as she's going, she reaches up and she touches her left eye, and then she
Yeah.
comes. That that was in the script that I had, but it makes me think that the script that I have might be more related to maybe a different version of the script, because the
Mm.
ending that I was reading was it still had Evelyn's death in it, but it took out the idea of Noah Cross uh, getting away with um, Catherine.
Right.
And so that was, to me, it's like the ending that we have. It's bad because first of all, you're shocked, right?
Yeah.
That Evelyn is dead. I mean, that I didn't see that coming. And then when you see Noah Cross putting his hands around his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
being Catherine, and dragging her away, you know, you're just like, no, no, somebody stop him. You got
Yeah.
to stop him. Oh, just such a impactful ending.
Yeah. Uh, um, yeah, and it's just that's what makes that screenplay, just unforgettable.
Mm.
Um, so we're going to talk real quick about the dialogue, the character, and the subtext. One of the reasons that Chinatown still gets studied is the dialogue. Town isn't writing big movie lines. He's writing truth disguised as casual conversation. On the surface, the dialogue feels relaxed, even, playful, but there's always something simmering underneath. Jake and Evelyn, they rarely ever really say what they mean. Their conversations are full of deflection and avoidance. Noah Cross sounds warm and fatherly until you realize how terrifying that calm really is. And then even get his wisecracks aren't just humor, they're armor, for him. That's sarcasm, that's how he keeps control, you know? But with this one, subtext does all the heavy lifting. I mean, Town trusts the audience to connect the dots, but Polanski reinforces it by letting the scenes breathe. That's with the long silences, the long takes, those silences, those uncomfortable, ones, uncomfortable pauses. The characters don't explain themselves. They reveal who they are through hesitation, reaction, and what they basically refuse to say. So it's a script of a lot of restraint, but that's what makes it so powerful. I mean, uh, like you said, you might have already answered this, but is there a line or a scene in Chinatown that you feel simple on the surface, but just hits a little bit harder once you know what realizes, or once you know what's going on?
Oh, you know, some of my favorite lines in this happens to be, and I can't find it right off the top of my head, but it is the scene where, first of all, there's I already said one of them, but
Yeah.
the scene where Jack is trying to tell her that he's trying to tell Evelyn that, and she doesn't, I guess, wanna pursue this case with her husband possibly having an affair with another woman, because she realizes that if Jake follows this line, he's going to discover her secret. And Jake's confused. And he says, husband and wife affairs, it's kind of my thing. It's my métier. And
Mhm.
he uses this word. And I'm thinking, what is JJ Geddes doing with that word?
Yeah.
And I actually had to go look it up a little bit. I kind of thought I knew what it meant, but
Well, thank God you did, because I didn't. I mean,
it's his job. It's his thing. And there's another line too that I had underlined here in the script was where he's telling her that, look, this is all fine and well with me, but Mrs. Mulray, I darn well near lost my nose, and I like it. I like breathing through it, and I still think you're hiding something. So she's not coming out. She's not telling him, but he's telling her that he's gone through this whole thing of laying out this waterlogged bum who's been found, and that her husband has been murdered. He's laid all this out, but he's still telling her, "You're not telling me something," and that
yeah.
something, of course, is this relationship between her husband, Noah, and her, and little things sprinkled all throughout.
Yeah. And that's what just it makes it so well, then let's get into legacy and lessons. I mean, it didn't just, tell a great story. It basically changed what a screenplay could basically do. It took the basic bones of a classic noir and then threw in politics, psychology, emotion. But I mean, since 1974, it's become a reference point. I mean, it is taught in film schools, studied
Mm-hmm.
in writers' rooms, and I mean, it's echoed in movies that follow. Whether they don't have to be a neo noir, they can be anything. But structurally, it's almost flawless. As far as a screenplay structure, every reveal builds, every setup pays off. But I think that what really gives it the staying power is the theme that, truth doesn't automatically lead to justice. It just doesn't, it just sometimes just leads to a little bit of clarity, which raises the question of, would this script sell today? What do you think? If you were at the studio and they brought in this screenplay and a guy that's maybe just done a few rewrites here and there, is it gonna sell? Is it gonna people gonna see it?
Here's what I would fear. Let's say it does sell, maybe as a spec or whatever. Let's say
Mhm.
it does. I am not sure if today they would trust the writing to the audience. They wouldn't trust the audience to be able to follow along.
Yep.
And that there might be a lot more exposition and callbacks or something. I would love to think, and I'm sure we do, but I would love to think that we could get movies of this caliber that or scripts of this caliber that you don't always have a producer like Robert Evans who is going
Right.
to trust. I mean, that age is almost gone if it's not
Oh
gone
yeah.
already. So I would like to think it would sell, but I think it would sell with an asterisk because I think that there would be some notes.
Yeah. And I think it would sell, but not to a big studio like Paramount at the time. If it was to be sold to something like today, I think you would see it get, awards recognition, absolutely. But it would be one of those that was almost an independent, 10 different studios brought to you, 20 minutes of just
The,
producer credits before the movie starts,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that kind of thing. But eventually, but not in, like you said, I believe that era that's gone. Like I said, there's not a Robert Evans at Paramount. Um, you know, but great scripts, they don't chase trends. They
Mm.
outlast them. So at this part of the episode, as we're kind of nearing the end here, is we do a couple of companion picks to the episode. Something that maybe, if you're interested in whatever film or script we're talking about, you want a little bit more information. My pick is, and there are several books about Chinatown, I'm sure, as you know, but is a book called The Big Goodbye: Chinatown in the Last Years of Hollywood by Sam Wasson. It's literally all about the beginning and ending of the making of Chinatown with all the players. Nicholson, Dunaway, Towne, but mostly Towne and Polanski, and dealing, of course, with Paramount, Charlie Bloodhorn stuff. But it's a great book if you are a fan of Chinatown, and it's very, I'd say it's a lot easier read than the actual script of Chinatown. So, and then Chuck, I hear you have a pick for us as well.
Yeah, the script that I picked up off of Amazon, it was a twofer of Robert Towne scripts. One
Mhm.
being Chinatown, but the second one being The Last Detail.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the script for The Last Detail that I scratched an episode that we were going to do, and I plugged Last Detail in along with the movie Scarecrow for our March episodes of traveling movies that you might not have seen before. And it's again, it's one of those films that I had not even heard of The Last Detail until I started doing Cinematic Flashback. And I did not realize that it was by Robert Towne until I picked this book up. And yeah, it was one that I had to put in because I liked it. I watched the film, had a lot of fun with it. Jack Nicholson plays Billy Badesky, and you have a very, very young Randy Quaid as the man that he is escorting to naval prison.
Oh yeah, you'll understand the term "talks like a sailor."
Mm-hmm.
You will definitely hear that. And another thing that Town was it was not only good friends with Nicholson, but I think he knew, even though you feel like, oh, that's Nicholson kind of going off and doing his thing. No, it's written like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we saw it, you know. Um, so that's going to be a wrap on the first episode of A Script By. I think it went okay, Chuck. I'm assuming you had a good time. You know, you
I
can't see him, but he's got a big smile on his face.
No, we had a great time here tonight. In fact, I it's just am probably going to start trying to read more of these screenplays as they come up. I am eagerly looking forward to others in your series. So I will probably pester Jeff to let me know what you're doing so I can grab a screenplay and read it before I listen. And
Mm.
best of luck on this series. This is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, we're gonna do 12 right now, one a month. Like I said, it's not a film by as much as this film is great. You know, we just focus on the script, and like I said, why, you keep hearing, why is this considered such a great thing? Well, we'll tell you why.
Mm.
And I just want to put a shout out and a huge thank you to all of my film by colleague buddies for welcoming me back with open arms and being so supportive of the show. You guys are the best. You know exactly who you are. But next time on A Script By, we will turn the page to another landmark screenplay. It's going to be Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a screenplay or a script by William Goldman. Basically, a screenplay that changed how character banter and friendships were written in film. So remember, everyone, before it was a film, it was a script. Please join A Film By on social media. You can find us all on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X. We love interacting with you, sharing your opinions, taking your requests for future episodes, and debating great movies. You can check out our website at www.afilmbypodcast.com. Any questions or emails, please email at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com.